Depending on what type of product or service you're selling, a Performance Max campaign can be extremely beneficial so you can show your ads to the 47% of your total addressable market. And these people are the people who are interested or know they need or know they want your product or service, but they haven't yet quite taken action in order to receive that product or service. I have watched dozens of Performance Max video setups, and in this video, I'm going to be adding in 6 extremely high-level tips for not only setting up your PMax campaign, but also optimizing it. And these are 6 things that no other YouTubers are talking about. You're going to want to go ahead and go over to Create right over here, click on Campaign. So this is one of those high-level tips I'm talking about. So if you're already running ads and you already have, several conversions, whether it's sales or, lead generation forms, you can go ahead and go right into sales or leads. But if your Google Ad account has no data, go ahead and go with website traffic. Scroll down, make sure that your conversion goals are in here. Again, we are going for website traffic, but because Performance Max doesn't, just let you go for clicks, it does aim for some kind of conversion. All right, so once you get down here, just go ahead and click on the Performance Max campaign. Where should people go after clicking your ads? So this is going to be entirely up to you, and depending on what you're going to be advertising for. But again, in the ads, or for this case, the asset groups, you can always change that final URL. But for this example, I'm going to be advertising my Google Ad services for people who are in the health and wellness industry. So I have a specific landing page made for this right here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this link, throw it in here. Again, this is something that you can change at the actual asset group level, so it's not too big of a deal. For me here, I don't have another agency, working on my ads. It's going to be me. So I'm just going to go ahead and put, just for my sake, health and wellness. We know that, right, we want to go for form. The campaign name is totally, what suits you best and what makes the most sense for you. But so for my example, I'm going to go with this. We're going to go ahead and go over to continue. All right, so now once you're in the bidding, again, so PMax campaigns don't let you just go for clicks necessarily because they want to focus on conversions here. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and start with conversions. You can start with conversion value if this is not your first Performance Max campaign. If you're making more and you kind of already know what kind of ROAS you can get and what ROAS you want, go ahead and go to conversion value and then choose from there. But again, if this is your first campaign, or let's say you're running ads to a new product or service, just go ahead and go for conversions. And then once you actually, can see what kind of ROAS you're getting, that's when I would go ahead and recommend going back into the campaign bidding strategy and potentially changing that. But for the first PMax campaign, we're going to go for conversions. We're not going to bid for new customers only, so just go ahead and leave that there. Go ahead and click next. So I know a lot of people talk about, entering location and making sure of a couple things, but there's one thing that Google tries to hide from you. So I'm going to go ahead and address that after we make the campaign. So for this, let's just say that I want to advertise in the entire United States. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to enter another location. I am going to type in United States still. So we're including that. And then here's one thing that you really want to make sure of. Regardless, even though you have the United States country selected, I always go ahead and get rid of countries like Pakistan. For me, I'm in Arizona, so I'm going to get rid of Mexico because it's close. In particular, I know we're advertising to the whole USA here, but if you're advertising in California, Nevada, Texas, Arizona, make sure you always get rid of that just because it's so close. I have seen so many people, just do a location of Arizona. And even though their location targeting is set to people that are only in Arizona, there is a lot of traffic that goes through the cracks. So I just go ahead and remove a handful of countries that, in my experience, are just kind of the most connected to spam. So you just want to make sure that you're actually advertising in your selected country or, region chosen. So I always go ahead and do that. For languages, just keep it as English. This one right here automatically created assets, so be really careful with this. So in order for me to achieve the high level of ROAS for my clients that I want, I always turn this off because I'm testing so many different types of assets. And that's going to be among, if ad groups have multiple ads or if I'm creating multiple different ad sets. Overall, I'm testing a lot of copy. So I like to leave this up to me. So eventually I'll show you this once we make the campaign, but so I can go back into the assets and actually see what types of copy of mine are performing the best. So I like to have the most control over that. A little bonus here is if you are in the health and wellness industry and you're advertising something like semaglutide, tirzepatide, Botox, anything like that, you really want to make sure these are off because you don't want Google to accidentally use AI and create something that you shouldn't be advertising for or some kind of benefit that you shouldn't be advertising for. So just be really, careful of that. Under more settings, depending on your business, I always just keep these open so they're running 24/7. Go ahead and click next here. So this is where Google is going to try and use their AI leverage and, ask basically if they can, set up your final URL, the products, the keywords, the pages. I actually skip all this again for the same reason as the auto-generated assets, because I like to have control of this. And because, you're supposed to test, and I test several things, that I want to see what's working and then optimize from there. So I want to have more of a say in the actual reporting and metrics, so I can know how to improve my ads in the future. So I always skip this. Name this whatever you want. So let's say for me, we're just going to be going for, let's just do health and wellness, because that's the page we're bringing people to here. So for the final URL, we have that here again. For headlines, you always want to make sure that you're using as many as you can, just to give Google enough things to, to try and to work with. So I always start by just adding the most here, which is 15. I will let you go ahead and create these, based on what you want. But something that I like to use is ChatGPT for this. So for this, you do actually have to have the $20 a month paid ChatGPT plan. But what I like to do is I like to go ahead and go over to one called Google Ads Copy Wizard. I click create new ad copy for my Google Ads campaign, and it's going to ask you about 8 things that it wants you to provide. So I provide all these to this, to this prompt. I look at what it generates, and then I base it off of that. So a lot of times I don't actually use what it provides, because even though, it should know how many character limits there are, within the Google Ads actually creating the ad, a lot of times it goes over or way under those. So I really just use this along with, looking at the landing page for all kinds of copy I want to use. I kind of use this as like an extra tool to help me think. So I typically don't end up using, the full results it gives me, but I use it to help me, be more creative and come up with more things. So again, you want to fill all these out. Same thing with long headlines, descriptions. Make sure you have tons of different variety of images, logos, at least throw one in there, the business name, videos, right? All the stuff that's pretty self-explanatory. In terms of site links, I always, if you have anything like additional, like let's say you have a contact page or an about us page or a services page, you always want to go ahead and add those in here, because one, even if they aren't super relevant to your ads, as you can see right here, here is what our ad would look like. But when you add site links, they're going to come up down here. So what it overall does is it helps you take up more digital real estate. And then again, it just gives, people more options on what to click on. But in my opinion, the main benefit here is so you're just taking up more on the screen. So I always like to do that. Any kind of call to action, I see a lot of people automate this. If you're selling a product, I like to go ahead and do, shop now. For me running my services and collecting forms, I always just do learn more asset types here. Always add the phone number, just so people can call right away if they want, if that's easier. For promotions, I always recommend you add literally any tiny thing you can in here, whether it's, just free shipping or free shipping over a certain price, or if you're running any kind of deals, you always want to make sure that you have anything you can in there, right? My rule of thumb for all this stuff is to provide as absolute many things as possible, just because it's going to give Google more stuff to test. It's going to add, more ad variations. And then again, you can look in your assets and, you can really see what's working overall, what's getting the highest impression share. So I like to throw out everything at Google at first to help me gauge and, determine what I'm going to be doing in the future. So again, do all that stuff here. Scrolling down, you can add a display path, right? So for me, if I was going to be doing, let's see if health and wellness fits. That is not going to fit. Maybe just throw on, health and wellness for here. If I was going to do Google Ads, just adding that little stuff there is fine. So now scrolling down here, so signals. So search themes are basically, your Performance Max keywords. And these are always going to be set to being more broad, right? Because you're not advertising to people who are directly looking for you, but they can be looking up, these kind of terms like on YouTube and just, in Google in general, or like specifically if they're in the shopping feed. So these are always going to be more broad. So for me, if I was going to be, looking for search themes to help me get leads for my Google Ad services for health and wellness, I actually don't use the Google Ads keyword planner, but instead I use a third-party service called Mangools. So I'll show you that right now. Let's just say, I know we chose the United States, as an overall. So let's go ahead and click on United States. So let's just type in any kind. Let's do medical Google Ads, right? So I'm just going to fire a ton of different things on this and really just see what provides me any search value. So this is pretty low. Let's just go ahead and type in Google Ads in general. Let's see. Obviously, we don't want to use just Google Ads, as, yeah, of course, right? In one that's extremely expensive. So we don't want to just use Google Ads, but instead I like to just see what people are actually looking for here. So like something like a Google Ads manager, that could mean a lot of things, but that could be something to add and to test. Let's take a look. So, okay, so looks like a lot of people, of course, using this just to like actually go into Google Ads. So that's okay. So what if you type in Google Ads agency? So get a look. So of course, you always want to be looking at search and then CPC, which is going to be, the estimated cost per click. So, okay, this could be a good one. So then what I do is I just take note of these, and then I'll go ahead, and put these in the Performance Max campaign. So don't feel like you need to fill up all 25. Again, because these are basically an even broader version of broad keywords. They're just themes, or just search themes. They're not keywords, right? So really kind of keep it niche. I recommend having anywhere from 7 to 15 search themes. You'll put these in here for audience signal. So I see a lot of people actually skipping on these. So what you can do here is you can actually, change demographics. Also, if you have any customer lists uploaded, you can use that as well. So here, depending on your product service, for instance, I'm selling Google Ad services. I wouldn't necessarily anticipate someone who is under the age, of probably 25 to be looking into this very seriously, and maybe not someone over the age of 65. So if you want to go ahead and tighten these up a little bit, you don't want to tighten them up too much, but just a little bit can help, right? I wouldn't necessarily be expecting anyone from age 18 to 25 to want to be seriously advertising their business, even though nothing against that. I know tons of e-com guys who crush it, but just on a grand scheme of things, maybe you could leave this open, maybe leave this to here, whatever you want to do. There's also additional in terms of household income. If you're selling something that is a higher ticket product, like let's say you're selling outdoor furniture, e-commerce style, maybe get rid of people who are, at 50% or lower of the household income threshold. So maybe just bring that up to here. So just so you're advertising to the right people, and you're not, wasting your spend on clicks of people who potentially aren't going to be able to afford what you're looking for. So that is all that. So let's go ahead and go to next. So for here, your custom budget, we don't have anything entered. So Google is just going to say, $1, or I've started campaigns where Google has recommended we spend $1,600 a day. Don't let them influence you here. Know what budget going into your campaign setup that you're going to be using for your whole account. And let's say that you're starting off by doing a search and a Performance Max campaign at the same time. And let's say you want to be spending, $1,500 a month, right? So that leaves you at about $50 a day. I would do 25 and 25. Try not to have any campaigns that are going to be spending, $10 or $15 or, less than that a day. So just, make sure that you're starting here. Make sure your budget going into Google Ads, and kind of gauging that in with the different types of campaigns that you want to be going with. So we'll go ahead and click next here. I'm not going to have anything because mine necessarily isn't ready. We didn't fill it out all the way. But now I want to take you back, to looking at an account, and I want to give you guys those high level tips that I was talking about after we've set one up. So now we're done with the setup. But now we want to go ahead and talk about some of those extra things. So moving in with some optimizations. So if you remember, when we were looking at the actual location targeting, we were not able to choose presence or interest. So I know this is a search campaign, but you can go ahead and click this cogwheel in the campaigns to also pull up the settings. They're going to look the same. So when you go to locations here, you're going to see this option, location options, right? So you want to make sure that wherever you're advertising in, you want to make sure that it's included, set to presence. So people that are in these actual locations, not people that are interested in or have shown interest in these places. That could be people traveling, or people who are in that spot at a certain time, or people looking to book a trip there. So in a PMax, this option will not be brought up to you in location targeting when it is in a search. So make sure you do this on your own. Make sure you bring this down to presence. So looking at a client's account, I have things blurred here just for their company privacy. So one thing I want to mention here, right, in coming into the optimizations and setting up your PMax, I don't want you to, to get too excited and have a ton of asset groups, because one big thing to remember is that Google spends on a campaign budget level, right? I know platforms like Meta, they can spend either campaign or by the ad group, and their default is by the ad group. But here in Google, it is only going to be, spending at a campaign level. So for instance, if you have 10 asset groups in here, there's only going to be the top couple that are getting all the clicks, which is where all the spend goes. And that can just mean, depending on how many clicks are eligible based on the search themes that you used. But when you're starting out and you want to test certain things against each other, the only proper way to do that is going to be by actually, making more PMax campaigns with their own budget. Because again, if you have other search themes that are more popular than others, and let's say you want to, let's say you're running for a health food product, and you want to test a health conscious audience, so you have search themes like vegan bar, all natural protein bar, dairy-free bar, plant-based protein bar, stuff like that. And then you have that in the same exact campaign as you have something like protein bars. Like let's say, you know, in that other asset group, you have just a protein bar search theme that has probably over 100,000 searches a month. You're not hardly going to get any spend in that health conscious asset group because all the money is going to be getting spent at that actual protein bar asset group, because that's where all the clicks are coming in at. So Google has a tendency to favor what is spending the most, whether that's actually performing the best or not. So, you know, once you have tested other things, you can put them, you know, into a big category, like something like we've had here. You know, a lot of these are actually turned off. We're not running 10. But once you break things down, you know, and see how they're testing on their own, and then you can bring them into something like this. But again, just because the way that Google favors budget, you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket, because not a lot of things are going to be getting a lot of spend. You'll notice that a lot of the spend is gravitating towards maybe 1 or 2 asset groups. So another thing I want to tell you guys too is a lot of people, they realize, you know, because there's not an actual ad level in the PMax, it's just the asset groups. A lot of folks realize, you know, there's not a lot of clear direction to see any important metrics. You know, as you can see right here from the view, this isn't going to tell me, you know, what asset groups are performing the best. We can't see click-through rates, conversion rates, cost per conversion, etc. So here's a little trick. If you go over here and you go to a table, you can now actually see all this. So you can use the columns just like anywhere else and modify them and bring up any kind of column that you want here. So click-through rate, you know, if you want to see just conversions, cost per conversions, cost, you can see all that. So this is the most beneficial way to actually, you know, look at the deeper metrics when you're testing asset groups against each other. You might actually realize that your best asset group might be the one that's not even bringing you that many conversions, right? So that might be one that you determine you want to give more spend to. So in that asset group, if you're testing a certain type of audience, like let's say you have that segregated and you're testing, you know, search themes and copy just for those health conscious shoppers, and you don't have a ton of conversions there, but the ROAS is really high, cost per conversion is low, the overall, you know, CPC is low, that might be one that you determine that you want to break out based on this data. You know, the vice versa of that too is I see that a lot of people, they have most of their conversions, like 70 to 80% of their conversions in an asset group that isn't performing the best. So they go, okay, this isn't the best, so let's get rid of it. But you also want to make sure that you're not bottlenecking yourself, because if you end up getting rid of the asset group that all of your conversions are going to, now you're going to be, you know, putting spend into a bunch of other things, depending how many asset groups you have, that aren't driving you a ton of conversions. So you never want to get rid of the backbone of the thing that's, you know, driving all your revenue and at least, you know, spending all your ad spend, of course, assuming that you're at least getting, you know, some type of good return on it. So just be careful of that. You don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is the assets, right? Which is going to be all your ad copy, images, videos, and whatnot. Because we chose to not let Google, you know, leverage their AI and create all these assets and whatnot for us, because we're testing all that copy on our own. So now if you go ahead and go over to assets, click on assets again here, now you can actually see what is performing the best for you, right? So it'll show you assets right here. Here's a headline, here's images. It's going to show you, you know, based on, like, it'll show you conversions. Again, naturally, you can go ahead and go to modify columns. You can bring up any kind of columns you want. It doesn't give you a ton, but this at least lets you see, you know, where a lot of your conversions are actually coming from, right? So if you just want to go ahead and look at the conversion value by the conversions, you know, that's going to let you see like the real ROAS. And then of course, you know, looking at costs associated with these as well. That's how you're going to actually be able to see, you know, what headlines, descriptions, long headlines, images, videos are going to be doing the best for you. So if you realize that a certain type or theme of any kind of copy is working for you better than others, then maybe that's a direction to focus on. And this is why we test this. Let's say that, you know, images that actually have the product being shown with someone's face in it is doing better than just, you know, just pictures of the actual product with no one in it. Then maybe that's a direction to focus on too. When you're ordering more images or, you know, getting more images taken, that might be something to think about. So all of these things come together to help you build a strong PMax. Again, you know, you want to make sure that you're testing everything correctly. You're not throwing too many asset groups into one PMax. You want to make sure that each asset group is going to be targeting one specific thing and one different, you know, type of buyer. So you can make sure that you're separating and actually testing everything correctly. So eventually all this combined is going to help you optimize slowly over time to be able to be more intentional with your ads. This is going to help you find out who your best and, you know, target avatars are. So like what are the demographics of, you know, the type of people who are going to be giving you your best conversions, and what type of copy and whatnot do they like? So taking all that into account and making changes going forward is going to help you evolve into having an extremely high performing shopping PMax or regular PMax campaign. So I hope this helped you guys. Let me know down below if you guys have any questions or need any more clarity.